Hello, Mr. Smith.
How are you?
I'm really well. A bit hot and a bit uncomfortable, but
It's
I'm
too
okay.
hot today, too hot today.
It is, and you've got a black long sleeve shirt on, a very nice black long sleeve shirt, mate, but it's making me feel even
Leaves are
hotter.
wrong.
Good
We've got
thinking.
everything covered here.
Well, I'd roll those sleeves up as well. It looks like quite a posh watch, so I don't blame you for a second, mate. Sunshine or rain.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
So, good sir, weather chat to one side. I know that that's the most British way to ever introduce a video, but as much as I could talk about the weather all afternoon, we're here to talk about you, my friend, and your career and what's been going on in your life over the course of the last 6 months. So, I guess before we go into that and I start picking your brains and going through all that kind of good stuff, for anyone who's not familiar with you, Brenton, or your story or who you are and what you do, do you want to introduce yourself in a minute or two?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm an ex-territory owner from a well-known hybrid estate agency. I helped set them up probably 6, 7 years ago from day one. Built a really good team up in Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire, and in some areas became number one in those areas. And then in the middle of the pandemic last year, September, decided to jack that all in, being sort of self-employed in brackets employed, and become properly self-employed, as I call it.
Okay, brilliant. So let's just do a little bit deep dive into that, mate. What was it that got you to come out of your previous role? Well, say the name, like not being derogatory, Purplebricks. You came out of that company, and then obviously you came over to eXp fairly soon after that exit. Given that you was already self-employed, and it's not up to me to reveal the money that you was earning, Brenton, but I know you've earned good money in the past. What was it that caused you to step away from that and come into a model like eXp?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, a lot of people think I'm crazy because the money was very good. It was quite high. It was quite comfortable.
Just
For
to
the
put
early
this into
days,
to put this into context, mate. So you as a TO, how many LPs did you have kind of within your organisation, if you like, or under your
13.
stewardship? 13. Okay.
Yeah, it varied up and down, but generally when I finished, it was on 13 LPs covering all around, say, Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire. And so, yeah, things are good. And I was mentoring them and managing them and looking after them. And when I started, it was sold as it was my own business. And it felt very much like that at the start, that it was my own business. Obviously, things changed with the history of Purplebricks, and got to a stage where, to be fair, I was just helping build their brand, and the local property expert wasn't really mentioned. It was all about the branding Purplebricks, which is a very, very good brand. And I just felt left to the side. I was building somebody else's brand. And I didn't feel, obviously, I could give all the decisions that I wanted to do, because I was obviously had to go from decisions higher up at Purplebricks. And I think when there's a pandemic, we was all sitting at home for a year, or if not longer, you start thinking things, and what's the future look like for a state agency, for Purplebricks and everything. And I've always wanted to run my own estate agency. I always had that sort of little niggle in the back of my head and saying, run your own estate agency, Brenton Smith Estate Agents, just go for it. And I was pleased that my wife supported me. I thought she wouldn't do, because she's also on furlough and still on furlough now. So I thought
So you
she would
keep her.
say, are you crazy, man? We're giving up all this, really good sort of, I say salary, but money each month I was invoicing. And she fully backed me and said go for it.
It's interesting though, mate, because the money that you was earning in your previous role, I think that that'd be a good aspirational benchmark for a lot of people. There's people who see that kind of income and think one day I hope to earn that much, and it's there's something quite telling about the fact that you got there and you was earning decent cash. But I think there comes to a point, and I know it's all I hate it when people, or I used to hate it when people say this, because once you've got money, it's all well and good to say that money's not everything. But genuinely, you get to a point where you realize, actually, whether I earn 100 grand a month, 10 grand a month, 5 grand a month, a grand a month, that's not all what happiness is. There's other things. And I think for you, you probably came to a crossroads where it was more about legacy to an extent. It was about doing things your way, did that fulfillment piece, I guess, that kind of only comes when it's your name up in lights. Is that sort of the conclusion that you came to, that it wasn't all about money?
You know, okay, at the start, look, you start something, it's about the money, it's about the wages and whatever but you do come to realize, you're right, it's not all about the money. The money helps, but then it's, you know, beyond money. If someone said, look, I'll give you £1 million a year wage, you know, what fulfillment are you going to get from that? You're probably going to get pretty bored quite quickly with that sort of money coming in. So it wasn't about the money, you're right. It was about building a legacy, and more so a legacy for my family. So, you know, God forbid, if I was to go tomorrow and I was at the previous role, there would be nothing left for them.
Yeah.
They'd be like, what's Dad left us? Nothing.
Yeah.
You know, when with my own business, at least I'm building that legacy. You know, whether the kids want to go into agency, that's up to them. I won't force them too much.
But the option's there.
But yeah.
And here's a question for you then, mate, because obviously me and you were speaking for quite some time where you was weighing up your options and looking at that transition. I don't mind saying it took you a while to come to the conclusion and to kind of get yourself in a place where you was taking the step. So what a lot of people can probably empathize, because I know a lot of people watch from the sidelines, they have conversations, they watch videos, they listen to podcasts, they do their own research before they put their head above the parapet. What was it that took you so long? Was it just an information overwhelm? Was it uncertainty?
It was just, I think it's a massive decision. Look, you know, whatever decision I made, it's going to affect the family. You know, we want to still make sure we can live in the same house, and, you know, I can buy kids shoes and they can eat. So it's obviously a lot of pressure when you're giving up quite a good role. And so I wanted to make sure the decision I made was the right one. So delved in to look at different self-employed models. I looked at doing it completely on my own, direct with the portals. Obviously, I looked at eXp, Keller Williams, and a few others, and just really delve into them. Met up with a few people from the other sort of businesses. And that's when I made my decision. Okay,
and what was it that brought you over to eXp back then? Was it just a gut feeling? Was it the commercials? Was it a cultural thing? Was it what was it that put eXp top?
I think it was a bit of both. The main thing that, I know this sounds, it was just simple. Not as it's simple, but it was the way that the split was with the money, the finances, the commercials was just very, very straightforward. Look, it's a 70-30 split. You know, you pay £125 a month plus VAT. That's it. It's just so straightforward.
Yeah.
When other companies make it, you know, percentage of this, percentage of that, and it gets very, very confusing. And at the same time, I just think it was, the culture seemed very good. I could see that eXp culture growing, and I could see the support network. And what I liked, especially with Mr. Adam Day, there wasn't a hierarchy. He wasn't coming in windmilling saying, I'm the big boss of the UK for eXp, come and join me. He was just a guy recruiting people going around the UK. And everyone was on a level playing field.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for me, the no hierarchy. There wasn't a director of this, a director of that.
Yeah. And do you know what? I think that's, not to take this conversation too far onto a different tangent, but I think that's absolutely huge, because that's one thing that I love about the framework, in that it really does put a level landscape out there for people. You're not being promoted, or you're not getting to a certain point or earning a certain amount of money based on who you know, how well you get on with the boss, your gender. You know, I'll say there's still a big inequality, male versus female. I think it's very honest that everyone pays the same amount, everyone gets the same splits, everyone's got the same opportunity, the same scalability, everyone's got the same cap, everything's just equal. So it's down to you. If you want to go and earn 20 grand a year, that's amazing. If you want to try and push that to 200 grand a year or £500,000 a year, then that's your prerogative as well. And I think there's something very honest about that model, the fact that people are allowed to spread their wings and do things, you know, their way.
It's just down to the individual then, isn't it?
Of course.
You can't blame anybody else. You know, you can't blame higher management or somebody else, or someone's advertising this correctly. It's you at the end of the day.
Yeah. So let's break this down then. So you came over from Purplebricks, you came into eXp, a very scary transition, a big step for anyone. You got in, you bedded yourself into the business. Me and you built quite a good relationship. You got to know Adam, a few other people, got some support from our guys over in the US. Started growing your business in Grantham. Had to grind, churn, put some work in, put some hard yards in to get those initial instructions, but you did it. You got some beautiful properties, did some great videos. I absolutely doffed my cap to that. I remember seeing your first ever video on that 900 grand property, and I was like, wow, that was some presentation.
I had the good thing I sold it, which is even better.
Yeah, well, it always helps, mate. It always helps. But what I'm trying to say is he was doing all the right things. He was getting off to a decent start. The stepping stones were in place. The success was coming through. You seemed to fit in quite well, and then you left. So talk me through what it was like starting your business, finding your feet. How did that compare to what you was doing before? And ultimately, why did you leave us?
I think that's the $1 million question. It's like, yeah, I left because of the money. Didn't really. I left because it's all about the money. It's completely not. I think, look, the obvious that everyone says, yeah, you've obviously come back to eXp because when you go solely on your own, the overheads go, they go through the roof, 100%. And, the overheads are high. The sales are taking longer to come in at the moment, 4 or 5 months for completions. And they're saying, look, that's why you've come back to eXp. It's a lot cheaper. I'm not going to lie. There's an element of that, of course. It's nothing personal. As a businessman, you have to look at your spreadsheets, what's going in and out, and you've got to decide on which way to go. So yeah, that was a small factor. I think the biggest thing, I may get a T-shirt say the grass is never greener on the other side. So I left eXp, and you've got to think I left this sort of culture, and at the time when I left, there was about 70 agents, and there's about 235 now. So I left 6 months ago, and there's about 70 agents, got to know everybody, we're networking, Facebook Workplace, and it was nice to have that interaction. So then day one I left, 1st of April, it was me on my own and Billy no mates. And I was like, who do I talk to about support, etc.? And you want to bounce ideas off people about marketing, gaining more instructions. I can't keep going back to the wife and saying that, she's been divorced.
And that's huge. And sorry to interrupt, because I know that there's a lot more for you to say on this, but I think a lot of people underestimate that. So I think it's a point worth highlighting in that, I've done the same thing, but the opposite way around. So I was completely independent, alone, if you like, without any hub model or partnership program before. And that was one thing that I underestimated, how lonely it can be being an entrepreneur, doing things, stand alone. You need somebody to share success. You need someone to high five. You need someone to pick you up when you're feeling down, someone to challenge your thinking if you're about to do something stupid, and someone to urge you on your way if it is that you're on the brink of genius. It's so important to have that sort of wolf pack, if you like, around you. We're social creatures, and having that social support can't be underestimated.
And I think people do set up agency all the time. They go and set high street branches up, they set agencies up, but most of them are in a partnership. They have a business partner, and there's normally 2 of them doing it. Things may have been different for me. If I had a business partner, don't think I could work with a business partner because I would listen to them like, that's my idea. But yeah, most people do it as a team. So you naturally got someone to bounce off. But when you're alone, it's a massive, scary place, and I jumped into it and it was great. I'm then going out listing, I think, also part of sort of leaving was that I wanted my own brand, my own logo, and I was fixated on it. And I would go back and tell myself now, stop being so stupid. It's just you. You're the brand. Don't need. I mean, my brand's pretty straightforward. It was just Brenton Smith Estate Agents.
Yeah.
It's not really much difference. And
I mean, I think that's the key. I mean, the customer really doesn't care if, and this isn't just us saying anecdotally, clearly you've seen for yourself now, you've tested the concept, whether it's Brenton Smith with eXp, Brenton Smith Estate Agent, estate agency. They're not bothered. The ours that match them is the
If
Brenton
I
Smith
went to one of my vendors and said, this is logo A, this is logo B, and they were like, yeah, which the other vendor,
Yeah.
what have you done? That
Yeah.
there's nothing any different. And the biggest thing is, look, all the vendor cares about is you're selling the house. I care about giving that service to them, you know, as long as I can provide that bespoke service from selling the house right to, you know, through to completion and handing over the keys. You know, that's the bit I like,
Yeah.
is achieving from A to B. And
Yeah.
that customer then, you know, is happy. That's all I want at the end of the day. And that's why all the logo and everything really, you know, doesn't matter at all.
No. So let's look at the challenges that you've gone through over the last 12 months, mate. So first off, can you tell me what the challenges or the main notable points of difference might be from someone coming over from a hybrid type setup, not necessarily Purplebricks, but we'll just use them as an example because that's relevant to your experience. What was the biggest culture shock? What was the most challenging? What was the most exciting thing even about coming from a PB into an EXP when you first made that move over? Anything, any tips that you give?
Yeah, it's a little bit different for me because I came over as territory owner. So I haven't been, before I came over, you know, I was 4 years valuing on the road. And then for the last 2 years, I literally sat at my own office and I was managing a team of LPs. So I hadn't even been out valuing for 2 years. I didn't want to. So that was really interesting to get back into it, to get back into doing your things.
Back on the front line.
And straight away, straight into evaluation, you find your roots again and you just go out. And, you know, for the first 6 months, I was on 100% conversion rate. I'd go out, say what I'm going to give, what service, and we'll just go from there. Look, I'm going to be honest, I haven't won all of them since then. There's one or two that you lose. You can't keep going at 100%. I want to try and keep my 100% record. You know, I'm probably on, I think, 85, 90% now. Most things I go out to, our list. So that was a bit daunting going into the living room and starting all over again. And
well, this is the thing, and an interesting point that you make there, because I mean, don't quote me on this exactly what it is at the moment, but generally speaking, for a business that's corporate brand driven, they're probably going to expect, I think on the lower side, anywhere from 30, maybe up to 50% conversion in the living room to signed business. Whereas what we're seeing across the estate, and not even just for you, Brenton, but for me, for many of our partners, is that because they're building the business around them, and this might take a little while to wash through because social media needs to catch up and people need to learn about you and be educated over time. But effectively, you're getting called out to fewer valuations. But because you're getting so much of the split, you don't need as many valuations, you don't need as much stock, but also you're getting in the living room and it's almost like the business is yours to lose because they've bought into Brenton over time, right? So it's not as if you're a statistic where you're going to get 1 in 3 anymore. It tends to be the case that you're going to get anywhere from 60 to 80% generally is what we're finding.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of the culture shock. So I went from, let's say, you know, agents getting 3 to 5 valuations a day, 7 days a week. First day, you launch on whatever day, a Monday, on the first of the month, and you're sitting there and you go, okay, the phone's not ringing. I've got no valuations. And I think that's the culture shock because the other agencies, you're spoon-fed valuation. Look, I used to work at the high street before Purplebricks. I was still given the valuations as a valuer.
Sure.
You know, I know the odd 1 or 2 yourself, Jen, but you know, generally you get given the valuations, and
you're not incentivized enough to self-gen a lot of the time, are you? Why would you go to that extra effort?
I think also with Purplebricks, you know, you get all the valuations on a plate, really.
Yeah.
So it doesn't generate lazy estate agency. It generates what would you call it, being spoon-fed, where you're just comfortable. See, what used to happen is once valuations used to dip, everyone used to complain and say, "Where's my valuations?" You know, they would go to the management and say, "Look, I've got no valuations. Where are they?" And it's like, if it's your own self-employed business, it's up to you to go and get your valuations.
Yeah.
Nobody else. So that's a big culture shock. So I went from thinking I was going to be going out every day valuing, but now what the difference has been, let's say you do 1 valuation a week, but you're generally going to do that valuation and list that property.
Yeah. And that's, I
You don't
mean,
need the massive high numbers.
you really don't. You really don't. And obviously, I'm an ex-TO as well from Purplebricks. Like I left it a number of years ago now, but ultimately, I've lived that life as well. And it's not a criticism of agents, because I've been the first to say I was spoiled. You get used to going to bed on a Wednesday, waking up on Thursday morning, and suddenly you've got 2 or 3 more valuations in your diary. It's not the real world. And I can say, and it sounds like you've been through the same sort of experience, that when I came to do things by myself, I felt a bit guilty. I'm going to be honest, mate, because I felt as though I wasn't being busy. I wasn't being proactive enough. Why the hell am I not seeing 2, 3, 4 people a day? It took a little while for me to adjust to the fact that actually, instead of doing 4 vals a day, it's absolutely fine to do 4 vals a month, as long as I'm signing up 3 or 4 out of those 4 valuations that I'm going to. Did you struggle with guilt? Did you feel as though you weren't doing enough, or did you find your feet quite quickly and adjust to that change in
I
pace?
think what was interesting, you do get to spend more time with the family. And I know it's, people say it, you can take the kids to school, pick them up. Me and the wife will go out for lunch in the day, we'll go for a coffee. But at the end of the day, look, I've still got this. I'm on this 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So wherever I go, my office is like completely mobile.
Yeah.
Wherever I'm going. So
that was great timing, by the way, on that message just pinging through then as we were talking about. It looks like it was.
It's only a 1.5.
Yeah.
We'll get back to them, but the guilt side was slightly there, but I'd been working from home for 7 years with Purplebricks, so I was used to the changes and not going into an office and doing a morning meeting and being there 9 till 6, 7 days a week. So I'm sort of used to the culture, that side of being flexible. So sometimes I'll work at 8, 9 o'clock at night, but I may not start till 10 in the morning. I'm still putting hours in later.
Yeah.
So who decides? Right, we've got to have this mentality of working 9 till 5. Where did that come from? It's in the 1950s when it came into the workplace. Why do 9 till 5? People's lives are different now. People work different shifts and different days, and they just want that flexibility.
Yeah, and I think it just comes down to, I know this is really cliche, straight out of the cliche, but sometimes it's about working smarter and not working harder. Why do you need to be doing 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-hour days? And why do you need to be charging 7, 8, 900, £1,000 when you could completely reduce that down to do less hours, do less appointments, convert better, improve your processes and charge a higher fee, so get the same or better financial return for putting less man hours into the business.
And still have that work-life balance. And everyone talks about the mythical work-life balance. And don't get me wrong, the previous company, there wasn't a work-life balance. You was literally working, especially the LPs, they're working 16 hours a day.
They work hard.
At that time, for the money. So when people do change and come on their own, they're their own boss. Yeah. eXp aren't knocking on the door every morning. Get up.
Yeah, of course.
It's 9 o'clock.
I think that's what a lot of agents struggle with, and I don't mind saying I've spoken, continue to speak to a number of Purplebricks agents, some of which decide that eXp is a feasible route for them. Clearly, because we've got a number of Purplebricks agents in the business now active, and certainly we don't get them all. Some people decide it's not for them for whatever reason, but I always find that that's the main question. It's too good to be true. I've been sold this self-employed concept before. Okay, well, who accesses my diary? All right, okay, well, how many appointments do I have to do? Okay, what's my target for sales? And it's like, no, genuinely, guys, if you want to go and sell one house every 12 months and charge 1,500 quid, then I wouldn't advise it, but good on you. It's up to you. If you want to set the world on fire and be the biggest agent in the country and churn out number after number after number, then that's fine as well. It's completely down to you as the business owner to decide what a good business looks for you. But potentially a good this might be a well-positioned part of the chat, Brenton, to kind of slide in this IR35 thing, because that's the other side of it as well, right? You know, HMRC are quite strict that if someone's been treated like an employee, as in they're accountable to someone, being managed, they've got territories that they can and cannot operate outside of. If they're being told, you know, when they must be open for business, if someone's got access to the calendar, all these types of things insinuate that somebody is employed, which is why, of course, IR35 was imposed, and that's why we've had such a dramatic restructure on the side of Purplebricks. But, you know, for anyone out there listening to this who's maybe from that ilk and you're thinking, well, you know, it's only a matter of time before IR35 comes down with eXp and that's going to completely derail their business. I just want to emphasize that we've been set up and structured from day one to be prepared for this. We're aware of this. We're not coming in this with our eyes shut. We don't have exclusive territories. The agents can choose how they promote themselves, where they do business, what clients they onboard, what fees they charge, what terms they offer. Everything about that business, the DNA from the ground up is built in the agent's eye. And that's the difference between being self-employed in title, but not in reality, and truly having your own business. But let's fast forward a little bit, mate, because whilst we've made eXp sound great, and we've both spoke about the benefits of the model and the comparisons between the hybrid space and what we're now offering, ultimately you did leave. So you touched on a few bits earlier on, mate. You said that, you know, I was besotted by a logo. I wanted to, you know, have it branded in a certain way, and I felt as though, you know, I could go out and do it without the support of eXp. What was the catalyst that caused you to leave the business? And for anyone out there who's thinking, do you know what, agency ownership is for me, I do want my name up in lights, I do want to do things my way. My options are, I'm going to go and partner with eXp and do it this way, or I'm going to go completely independently. What advice would you give to that individual?
I think you have to look at there's hidden elements of eXp which a lot of people don't realise. Although it was right in front of me, I realised what I missed. So typical thing, look, people probably don't realise that you get a phone call from Rightmove with eXp or Zoopla. You know, we've got a PA, we've got Miss Moneypenny answering all the calls. So look, you're on your own, you're doing a valuation, you're doing a viewing, or you're having tea at night, you're in bed, you're going to get phone calls from Rightmove. Now, with eXp, got it covered 24/7. That call is going to be answered in a professional way, a message taken, and an email to you. That's one big thing I sort of missed and didn't realise it. So I'm on my own. Right, I'm getting, you know, I think one property I put on the market, I had 47 phone calls on a Saturday morning. I was a switchboard. You know, I'm on my phone answering and people leaving messages. I'm getting messages, emails coming through from Rightmove and Zoopla, and they're doubling up of the phone calls. Someone just left me an answer phone message. They've also sent me a message on Rightmove, and I'm just trying to work through them because obviously times are very busy with property, so the viewings are quite high. And that's where I missed Moneypenny, because if I was with eXp, they will be taking the ones I couldn't answer. I'd be answering them. I wouldn't miss anybody.
Sure.
So as a service to the vendor, you're giving a better service because you're available 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, look, I always say I'll answer my phone 8 to 8, 7 days a week. If I get a phone call at 10 o'clock at night, Miss Moneypenny is going to take it, and then it's going to be emailed over to me, and I can decide whether I ring that viewer or buyer, or I leave it next morning, or just send them a quick message saying I'll be in touch with them in the morning. So that's one big thing. Next big thing, and it sounds so straightforward, is invoicing. So you've sold, you put a house on the market, you've sold it, you've then gone to exchange. So with me, it's like, right, okay, I've got to send an invoice to the solicitors, and then I've got to chase that invoice and make sure it gets paid into my bank account. At the same time, while I'm doing that, I'm also doing a viewing and evaluation and answering calls. With eXp, all taken care. It's all done. You know, eXp will sort all the payments out for you. They'll do all the chasing, and you just invoice them, and then it comes straight through. And it's just so seamless. So straightforward.
So that's interesting, because I think a lot of people, when I ask that question, and maybe me to a degree, I expect you to jump straight in with a finance-led answer as to why you should come to eXp, because at the lower financial barrier to entry, it's lower risk, it's a leaner model, all that kind of stuff. But you've gone straight into the service elements and how that's going to benefit your consumer in terms of being part of the eXp network, which is quite interesting and a good answer, to be fair, mate.
Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong, you've got the other side. Okay, look, go on your own. You're on your own. You've set up. You've got your Rightmove account. You've got Zupa, and and all the others. And they're taking your money every month. I won't say who, but some are really nice to you. Some are really not bothered. If you want to, switch something on, I mean, premium listings are so expensive. It's unreal. For what the portals charge you for a premium listing, when you can get premium listings with eXp, they're so much cheaper.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's bulk power buying, right? You've got 230 business partners across the country. It's a hell of a lot more leverage than Brenton and Grantham. It's just a reality.
I'll be honest. Look, every customer I bring to the market, every property, I give a free premium listing on Rightmove, and I'll be honest, it's costing me 20 quid plus VAT.
Yeah, doesn't kill your margin at all, does it?
Rightmove, 160 quid.
Yeah.
Add a cab, you can get it half price for a certain time, but still a minimum like 90 quid for a premium listing. It's a lot of difference.
And the little things that people don't always think about, I know that one thing that people will be thinking about, though, is, and I don't want to put you on the spot too much, mate, but if you wouldn't mind at least giving us a ballpark, maybe to the nearest £1,000, what were your overheads when you was completely alone? Like, what would you been looking at if you'd have stayed not as part of eXp and stayed completely independent?
Look, I've got £2,500 a month that was coming out of my account with all the portals, everything else. CRM system, website. Like, I paid thousands to have a website rebuilt. Well, not rebuilt, I had a microsite with eXp, and then you think, when you leave, I've got no website. I need a website doing. So that cost me £2,000 plus VAT for a website to be built. I know it looks good, but it still cost me 2,000 quid, when with the eXp, it's included with 125 quid. So, it's pretty crazy. I went out and did that and got my own website. And then, so, I'm forking out £2,500. You've got to realise that's without my own sort of budget that I need to run the house, my own finances.
Yeah.
So that's on its own. So if you compare £2,500 compared to £125 with eXp, it's a no-brainer. Look, let's be honest. On your own, you're getting 100% of your fee. So if you're charging £3,000, you're going to get £3,000. With eXp, you've got the 70-30 split. So there is an element you're going to be paying over to eXp. But once you've capped at 24, you've paid eXp 24,000, you're getting the whole lot, apart from the small amount on completion.
Well, mate, I'm glad that you took the conversation in that direction, because I think it's a point worth referencing. So just very quickly, for anybody listening who's not familiar with what a cap is, of course, anyone listening to this in the network will be well aware, but for those that aren't, a cap is effectively a threshold of revenue that once you've hit that in a trading year, eXp will stop taking a percentage-based split out of your fees. So to put this into pounds and pence, if you join the network today and you did a £10,000 fee, you're going to get 70% clean. So you'll get £7,000 eXp, you'll get £3,000. Once eXp have taken 24,000 from you over a 12-month trading period, so mathematicians out there, you'll be aware that's an average of £2,000 a month. At that point, eXp stop taking revenue and you get everything bar a transaction fee of £250. So again, if you did that same £10,000 transaction after you've capped, you're going to get 9,750 eXp, take just £250. Now that's important, because that's what gives you real longevity in the framework. That's what means that the financial needle is always going to be in your favor. And a lot of people, and I really want to sort of take a minute to explain this, because a lot of people think, why would I give away 30% of my fee? But I want you to really reframe this. Let's look at Brenton's overheads of £2,500 a month, which, by the way, is quite lean for someone who's standing on their own. I've spoke to people who've been £3,000 to £6,000 a month quite easily with a very modest structure. But let's just go on Brenton's low ball of £2,500 a month. That's £30,000 a year. Now, unfortunately for Brenton, he's committed to paying that £30,000 a year, irrespective of how good of an agent he is, regardless of how many he lists, how many he sells, what his completions are. He's paying on day one, he's signing a contract, and no matter what happens, if he never signs or sells a single house, 30 grand is now accounted for in contracts that he's now committed to for a 12-month period. It's as simple as that. Whereas with eXp, you pay 30% of your revenue, but you pay that only out of success fees. Your only core overhead is £125 plus VAT, so £150 per month. If you don't sell a house, that's where your overheads are capped. If you are performing and you are transacting, because of the capping threshold, you're only going to be paying in the region of 24 grand a year anyway, which is less than what you was paying up front, Brenton. So when you look at this logically with your numbers hat on and you truly understand the economics and the risk reward, it just blows my mind. It really does. It really does. It really does. So now you're back with eXp and Brenton. What's the plan? What does the future look like? Where are you taking the business?
I was going to rewind a little bit there because we're speaking about the commercials and capping. You know, there is two other sort of revenue streams with eXp, which I think a lot of people forget.
Yeah.
You know, you bring. So look, I was on my own. I went on my own. I still had agents texting me, emailing me, ringing me, still thinking I was with eXp, saying, we're thinking about going self-employed. I'm looking at such and such.
Talk to me.
And I wasn't even with eXp. And I was saying, look, mate, I'll be honest with you. If you're going to choose something, you need to go with eXp because of all the models. That's what I went with. It's your lowest overheads and all the benefits and bonuses. So I ended up indirectly selling eXp, but I wasn't even with eXp.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, am I missing a trick here? So by coming back, you know, I introduced other sort of agents to eXp. There is going to be, you know, a revenue share coming in, which over that last 6 months, I've probably, I've missed out on. But now bringing people on, at least I'm going to get a revenue stream.
Yeah.
And then obviously, you know, you get rewarded with shares with eXp, and that's another, I call it a Brucey bonus. That's you know in the pot. So there's those two other elements that are not even taken into account of just the running of the overheads. You don't get those when you're on your own. That's it.
No, you don't, mate. And you know, ironically, I asked about the future, and you said I want to back step on the other two revenue shares. But in a roundabout way, I guess those two income streams that you've just referenced really do play into your future. So I guess indirectly, you've answered my question anyway. In that long term for you, of course, the acquisitions, the stocks and shares in eXp World Holdings, and the revenue share side of things, i.e., being able to leverage the network to give yourself a strong, somewhat passive residual income, is what is ultimately going to A, boost your personal wealth, B, give you an exit strategy, and C, take you off the hamster wheel of selling houses if it is that for whatever reason in the future you can't or simply don't want to be a frontline agent anymore. Maybe it's worth us just kind of breaking down very quickly. I'm mindful of time. I know we've been chatting for around 45 minutes at this point, so we'll kind of try and summarize this. But in your, talk us through the stocks and shares, Brenton. How does that work?
So obviously with the stocks and shares, every time you have a completion, you're going to get shares within eXp World Holdings, and they're saved in an account for you, and you can't exercise them for 3 years. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, in a roundabout way. So I guess really just to kind of, in the most simple way to break it down, there's 3 ways you're going to earn stock, right? So the first one is going to be what you've just said. You get $200 in stocks and shares whenever you hit your first completion at the start of a brand new year. So you get that for your life. If you're here for 10 years, you'll get that bonus every year that you're here. So your first completion of every year gets $200 in stocks and shares. You don't pay for that your own money. It doesn't come out of your revenue. It's gifted to you for free. And that vests, you get it at today's price, but that vests for 3 years. The second way you're going to do it is if you bring a partner into the business who then goes ahead and sells their house. when one of your agents who you introduce to eXp completes their deal, you're going to get $400 worth of stocks and shares. And again, that vests. And then the third way is that you've got the option to opt into an agent equity program. Effectively, you saying that you'll put 5% of your revenue into purchasing ownership in the business at 10% discount to the trade price at that time, and that goes passively into your kind of bank in the background. So the way that I look at it is whether you opt into the agent equity program, whether it's from completing on your own deals, whether it's from bringing new agents into the business, whether the share price goes up, whether it goes down, whether it's doing something in the middle. I just know that as part of doing my job, as part of helping other agents, as part of selling properties in Blackpool, where I live, I know that those stocks and shares are vesting in the background. And going back to what I said before, that's the exit strategy, because a lot of people come into business ownership, understandably being distracted by the excitement and the bells and the whistles of today, of getting your first board up, getting your first instruction. No one's thinking 10, 15, 20 years down the line. And the ownership in the business, bona fide ownership in eXp, is what culturally connects us all as agents. People will be there to see you succeed, because if you're succeeding in Grantham, that's contributing towards the value and the momentum of a business that I own. But also it gives you a bona fide exit. So you've got a pension pot, you've got money to buy a property, to do whatever you want to do with down the line. And as we're finding at the minute, whilst we all know stocks and shares can go up and down, the growth is quite exciting. We're benchmarking 1 million agents globally over the next 10 years across 100 countries. We're expanding very quickly in the UK alone. So I think it's an exciting time and something that shouldn't be overlooked. And I make that emphasis, Brenton, because I know that as agents, as people, as transaction people, we're used to selling houses. We love the hustle and bustle of the day to day. We love the challenge of growing our agencies. We're not share trade. We're not stock traders. We don't share. We don't trade in the market. So people overlook this. They acknowledge that, oh, that sounds pretty cool, but they don't truly understand it. And it's important to really emphasize that this is bona fide ownership. It's not options. I'm not going to rip them away from that. That's there. You own that stock the same way as you own your car or your house or whatever it is. You own this asset that at some point in the future, you can liquidate.
A lot of self-employed people completely forget pension, because if you're self-employed, you're not going to get a pension when you're older, unless you pay into your own pension fund or set some sort of pension fund up. And guarantee all the other self-employed models, or even when you're on your own, there's no pension pot at the end. When with the eXp, the shares are almost classed as that's the pension pot at the end if you do want to exit.
Yeah.
And you can cash in on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's huge. And that's, for me, that's what's the most exciting unknown, because we can never look forward into the future, but we can take lessons from the past. And, I'm looking back now to some of our colleagues in the US. Brenton, some of these guys got in when it was 20, 25 cents a share. Even when I started, when we first launched in the UK back in October 19, it was $6 a share. And today we're at, what, $80 a share? So there's that exponential growth. I mean, we've made more multimillionaires out of stock ownership than we have from anything else, from selling houses or any other sort of any other revenue stream. So for me, that's exciting. We've just acquired the Success magazine, an entrepreneur magazine which operates globally, founded in the 1800s. It's got amazing heritage. We've just acquired a tech company. We're selling our software into universities, into blue chip businesses. That's had a massive contributing factor to the share price. As I touched on, this is a global opportunity. We've just opened France, Portugal, Mexico, Australia. This is all since we joined just, 2 short years ago. So yeah, it's an exciting time is what I'm trying to say. And you need to have one eye on the here and now, but you also have to have one eye on the future, right? And how that business looks for you and your family in a decade's time. And for me, that's what's really exciting.
Yeah, 100%.
Top man, Brenton, well, I thank you so much for your time today and sharing the story. You are one hell of a unicorn in that you've been in the hybrid space at quite a high level, come into eXp, left eXp because you thought the grass was greener, and of course,
come back to eXp.
Come back complete 360. So, mate, it's amazing.
We're ready to rock and roll again.
We're ready to rock and roll, onwards and upwards, and I can't wait for what the future's got in store, mate. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks a lot, mate.
Bye.
Thanks, bye-bye.